Good morning. It is 7:39 a.m. Monday, October 10th, here with a New York session trade idea webinar. I'm going to go through the economic calendar and look at any events coming up, potential implications for the day. Going to follow up with a DXY US dollar analysis, equity sentiment, and finally going to break down the gold and GBPUSD price charts to look at potential trade ideas and important levels in the market that we'll be looking at getting into some trades for this upcoming session. Now, starting at the economic calendar, we see that we have a very light day in terms of data. There's no US dollar data coming out. Even this GBP retail sales monitor is very unimportant. It's not going to really have any effect. And we also have holidays here in Canada and in Japan, so this could even add less volume into the market. So we may have pretty quiet day so far. So there's nothing really going on unless we have from last week the sentiment continuing. Well, we may end up being flat if all fundamental events and fundamental information is priced into the market. We may just get some ranging and indecision, awaiting perhaps tomorrow where we're going to have a little bit more data. We're going to have more FOMC speakers and later on this week as well. So maybe a quiet start of the week. Having said that, let's start with the US dollar. Let's break down the chart here. Now, we are obviously playing US dollar strength on a higher time frame, on a macro level, with the Federal Reserve in an active rate hike cycle to combat inflation. So inflation is way too high, and the Federal Reserve, through many of the FOMC policymakers, have repeated the same rhetoric that inflation is too high, inflation must come down to 2%. They're going to continue raising rates for the end of the year and hold them high at least for the entire 2023 until they see the conclusive evidence that the inflation is going down. They are also ready to see unemployment rate rise. They're ready to see some pain in the economy in order to achieve this goal. So they're very resolute in their mandate to bring inflation down. So we have, and that's resulted in US dollar strength. So if we break down the charts here, we had this buy-side liquidity zone right around 110, 109.5 lead into these new higher highs, highest since 2002. Now from these highs, we entered some pullback structure here, as the pivot prayer sentiment comes in to bring some relief, some delusional optimism that perhaps the jobs data is going to be weaker and that the Fed may need to pivot. But we've had every single Fed speaker that spoke in the last weeks have reiterated their hawkish stance and their mandate to bring down inflation. Right, so there is absolutely no pivot prayers and no Fed pivot to be had. And once we retest this level, we saw this bounce, and we got buyers back in control, breaking past the previous lows, even the previous lower high, creating new higher highs on the intraday time frame. So the US dollar is back. The bulls are back. The sentiment, the overall sentiment is in play. And now, as long as we stay above these previous lows, if we come back to retest this level, this is still bullish. We could even come back down to 111.7 and still be extremely bullish. So the US dollar bulls are in control. I'm looking to continue this sentiment. And as I marked out here, if we break previous highs, the next target is 116.76, which is a weekly key level here. So US dollar bulls are in control. If I'm looking at the equity markets here, we do see that we had a little bit of a consolidation as we had equity markets pull back. But towards the end of last week, we had the main sentiment come back into play as the equity sellers came back and broke below these previous highs that we broke, creating some more liquidity for sellers to step back in and push the market down. So I'm confirming the sentiment with the equity markets and the volatility index back at the highs, that investors are risk off. They are liquidating their assets. They're selling off the stock market, basically playing that Fed sentiment. So that's what's moving the markets. That's what's holding the most weight. And that's where I'm going to be aligning myself in my trade ideas. So looking at gold now, let's see what we can do here. Let's look at the daily time frame, just to zoom out and have an idea of where we are in structure. All right, so on the daily time frame gold here. So we're obviously playing this bearish structure. We had this previous retest of 1800s getting faded out by the sellers with aggressive bearish structure here, printing aggressive new lower lows. From this retest of 1618, we had an aggressive pullback. Where did this pullback go to? We broke above this previous high, but we failed to break this lower high, which is a key supply area that brought price into these lows. So the sellers at this previous level, which is also the previous lows, came back in and is starting to fade out this move. Now, looks like sellers have rejected this level. However, we're now retesting these previous levels to the left here, that we may end up getting a potential bounce from. So I would need to see continuation on the lower time frames to see if we're going to continue to fade out the entire move here, or if we're going to get a pullback to potentially get a lower high formed in the market before selling off. So I am bearish biased here, but I'm going to be very careful to at this level based on previous structures here. Okay, so looking at the 4-hour chart, we could see that a little bit better here. So I'm bearish biased, but the market timing here, unless we got into sells earlier or we're holding sells from up here, this is not a great price level to look for sells, because again, I'm going to dissect this bullish price action. Now we created some liquidity here, and which brought us into the new higher highs on the lower time frames here. So this level in the market, we are actually retesting this 4-hour breakage structure around 1675. This was the previous highs that we broke. So it's very possible that if we fail to break this level, we may end up getting that pullback that we were talking about. But that doesn't change my bias. I'm not going to be looking for buys here. I'm just going to be patient for looking for the sells. And I may end up getting some sell confirmations at this 1688 level. Or if we come back to deeper retest, we have the 1700s level, which is also the previous lows here on the 4-hour that we could end up getting the sells from. So these are two important levels that I'm going to be looking for potential sells. And again, I'm not looking for a sell right here, but if we do end up continuing to drop, if we break back below, well then maybe I'll take a potential sell on the retest at that level. But we need to break it first in order to confirm that this level is breaking, that buyers are not going to step in, sellers are not going to start taking profit here to create this pullback, right? So I'm going to wait for that break in order to sell at this level. But for now, just waiting to see where price is going to go next, since we already had the important move down here from basically the end of last week. We started selling off, and now we've had some consecutive sell side candles here, and as you can see, we are getting a reaction from this level basically right before New York session, so we could end up getting that pullback. Now let me identify this level right here, because this is a previous significant low. We call that the 1 hour break of structure. Now, look at all these key levels here. We have a daily key level 1688. We have a 1 hour key level 1690. So this level right here may end up getting some reactions from, right? So this is my first level of looking for sells from this pullback. And if we do have a deeper pullback, kind of like this area right here as well, which was the previous lows here, and this is a 4 hour break of structure around 1700. So my trade ideas based on the overall sentiment and the market structure confirmations, I'm going to be looking for these following trade ideas: the pullback to 1688 to 1690 zone to sell off and continue the trend here. Or if we get a deeper pullback, and be looking at 1700 as well for the same basic trade idea, continuation of the overall sellers in this market, excuse me. Or like I said, if we have, let's see, like a little bit of a shorter pullback and then a break and retest, well, then I'm going to look for the sell right here, but I need to see a break before this level comes into play here. So I'm just going to mark this level out as a gray zone right here. This high, I want to include that high right there in this zone. So yeah, so this is a zone to be careful for. There might be some buyers in this level just to create that pullback, like I've been saying. So yeah, so these are the trade ideas. Next, looking at GU. Let's start from the top as well. Daily time frame is extremely bearish. Extremely bearish. I really like the structure here as we are coming from these daily lows, create a little bit of a pullback, retesting this weekly break of structure 176 before rejecting aggressively into these new lower lows, this historical lows. Even if we've had some aggressive pullback as buyers come out and relieve some sellers out of their market, and as profit taking ensues, creating this pullback, we retest previous lows and the sellers come back into play again, bringing it back down to 1.1058 where it's sitting at currently. So we do have sellers are in control on the higher time frames. Now on the 4 hour time frame, right? On the 4 hour time frame, we have this new 4 hour break of structure as well at this point. Now we are at a significant buy side level where I don't like to I wouldn't like to jump quickly into these sells, because we are at this previous demand zone here, because this was the last level that buyers stepped in and printed this new higher high, right? Even though we came back down and faded out that entire move, we are now sitting at the same exact demand zone. So for me to take any trades on GU, I would like to see a break of this level and retesting in order to continue the sells. So I'm going to need a clean break of this previous level right here, or I'm going to need a deeper retest. I'm not going to look for a sell right here. So let me delete this zone right here. I'm not going to look for a sell at this level just because we are at this demand zone here, right? So there's not a clean range here. This may end up just getting this deeper pullback. I would much prefer either this break and retest here, or a deeper pullback and take sells from the high of this range. Okay, so I know this level right here is going to be my next sell zone, basically the top of the range, and I'm going to ignore this key level right here just because its spot in the entire market structure is not favorable for risk reward parameters, let's say. And yeah, so these are going to be the two trade ideas I'm going to be looking for here. So break and retest and a sell from 1.12. So that's it for my trade ideas for today. Again, not expecting too much volume since we have not a lot of economic data coming out. We don't have any Fed speakers. We don't have anything like that. We have the holidays as well. So we may end up getting a slow day unless the volume is still in the markets from pricing in the hawkish Fed and fading out the pivot prayers. And if not, we may just end up getting some ranging price action today. So I'm not going to hop into a trade too early, and I'm going to be more patient. But yeah, so these are the trade ideas, and there you go.